a basic framework for international relations and internal security. Okay. Just go through the article, whatever I posted there. Okay. So we will be using today's editorial about how we have to counter Pakistan. Not just from that issue's perspective, but as an issue or as a framework on how we have to deal with our national security. So how can we map this article to our syllabus pointer? This lecture will act as a basis for your understanding about internal security and how we have to design our internal security architecture for any national security issues. Okay? It is not just about this one article alone. We are using this article as a framework for understanding just about every issue. Is that clear, everyone? Okay, great. Let's begin with the context of this article. What happened in Pahalgam? A few days ago, there was a terrorist attack which was fueled by hatred towards a certain religion, and this kind of communal inspiration or this kind of hatred to create the idea of terror in the minds of the people to cause a certain disturbance is an attack not just on the people but India's sovereignty. Linking it back to the preamble, we said that the first adjective is sovereignty, because if someone attacks us on our sovereignty, they are basically taking away our freedom. Okay? So the imperative of Indian government or state in the context of the political concept of state, population, territory, sovereignty and government, these are the four components of the idea of state. And the sovereignty aspect of the state should never be compromised. And that is the concept that we aim to protect when we are dealing with national security. How did we deal with our national security events till now? Consider the 26/11 attack. I'll just give you a brief backstory. Okay. When the 26/11 attack was happening, we had our own national security forces, NSG. But the problem was they were stationed elsewhere. We didn't have a proper plane to lift those security personnel and bring them to Mumbai. We did not have a proper intelligence framework, intelligence gathering framework. We did not have trained personnel. In fact, the site at which the attack was happening, that is the Taj Hotel in Mumbai, NSG commandos did not have the floor plan of that place. They had to walk into that place knowing that they might have to take a bullet. From there till now, we have come a long way in terms of getting ready for dealing with situations like this. But is this enough? No. The fact that attacks like Pahalgam are still happening shows that our security efforts cannot be episodic. What do you mean by episodic? You cannot react to certain things. Yesterday I've told you one line. It's always better to prevent and prepare than repent and repair. So our security architecture should feel like a strategy that can help us prevent situations like this. So in today's article written by a very famous editor, Suhasini Haidar, and is titled Not Revenge or Retaliation but a Paradigm Shift. What does it mean? We have to move away from reaction towards this episodic events to create a new paradigm in national security. What is that paradigm and why do we need to create it? That is the agenda of this article. We are extrapolating this article not just for this particular issue but for entire national security. Okay? In this article, in this presentation, I have included the keywords taken from the External Affairs Ministry. Okay? This language should be replicated in your answers to show that you are aware of the actual policies. Okay? So, India's national security framework. Do we have anything right now? Yes, but there are some gaps. There are some systemic gaps which we need to plug, which we need to fix. We have certain threats. What are the threats? Proxy warfare. What do you mean by proxy warfare? Any idea? Sorry? See, what is a warfare? When one national military is attacking another national military, it's a direct one-to-one attack. A proxy warfare is actually through other means, non-state actors. Proxy warfare includes terrorism. And state-sponsored terrorism is even worse. The government itself is supporting this terrorist attacks. That is also one problem. And hybrid conflicts. What do you mean by hybrid conflicts? The conflicts can mix with geopolitical tensions, with trade, with culture, and we will use multiple strategies ranging from cyber warfare, terrorism, radicalization, indulging in money laundering activities, etc., etc. This kind of multiple strategies will be used to disturb the sovereignty of this country. When the nature of attack itself is so diverse, don't you think our strategy should address all those problems? And therefore, for that reason, it cannot be episodic. We can see that we need a comprehensive security approach. So we present a strategic architecture that moves beyond reactive responses to establish institutional frameworks. What do you mean by that? Always it is not the event or it is not the person that will take care of a situation. In a democracy, it is always the institutions. If one individual walks out, another individual walks in, the system will take care of itself. It should not be dependent on the charisma of a leader or the heroic nature of the person who is heading that policy. It is a strong institutional framework that will address the problems comprehensively. And this should be clearly visible in your answers. So that's why in this article we'll be looking at how do we arrive at that institutional frameworks. So on one hand, we are understanding the problem statement, that is internal security is complex because we need to handle multiple situations within the country. But we are also talking about external security here because this is coming from across the border. So cross-border terrorism is a mechanism that can be avoided when external factors and internal factors. Without internal help, it is not possible for a planned attack like this. So you need to address internal security situations and external security situations. Both the fronts together will give us a solution for this national security architecture. Okay? And this should be clearly visible in your answers. Both the aspects. Moving on. So what will be our strategic objective when we are dealing with any national security doctrine? One, first and foremost importance is we have to maintain our territorial sovereignty. Next up is security. Cross border threats should be nullified, and then therefore we have to maintain the internal cohesion, preserve internal cohesion. Look at this line. India's doctrine aims to deter. What do you mean by deterrence? Whatever activities or whatever actions you take are done with an intent to avoid conflict. We are not someone who shows aggression towards our neighbors or any other sovereign nation. Whatever activities that we do, we are doing it with an intent to protect ourselves. So this doctrine aims to deter, not to attack. Please remember that. This language is important. Deter aggression through integrated civil, military, diplomatic mechanisms. Civil means people like us, especially in the border areas. People cooperating with institutions is extremely important. In areas like Kashmir, we need the support of people. Civil, military, and diplomatic engagement. Three verticals. So when you are talking about the civilian government, all the ministries at the central government will be a part of that. Military is about the armed forces, and diplomatic engagement is about international relations and negotiations. So this is a comprehensive strategy to achieve the objective of protecting our sovereignty, ensuring security, and therefore stability. These are the keywords. Clear? Now, what is the kind of architecture that we should have? I'm calling it the tri-axial architecture. What do you mean by this tri-axial architecture? Firstly, we have to have a counter-terrorism strategy. Then we need a mechanism for retaliation. And then we need a mechanism for escalation management. These are the three vectors of our strategy. What do you mean by this? Firstly, let's talk one by one, let's deal with them. Firstly, counter-terrorism. Counter-terrorism strategy means any activity that you do to make terrorism as an idea stop. It's not about that one attack. It's about the idea itself, killing that entire idea itself. So we have to have preemptive neutralization mechanisms, meaning we need to have intelligence mechanisms, intelligence gathering mechanisms, so that any planned attack will be stopped right there at the source itself. Preemptive, like you have to plan for that by proper coordination with intelligence agencies. So for this, interministerial coordination becomes very important. Interministerial coordination. You have something called the NAT grid. How many of you know NAT grid? NAT grid. You will be again looking at this in your basic internal security classes, but just know this term, NAT grid. Okay. Okay. So this NAT grid will have a centralized platform which will gather intelligence from different sources. It can be intelligence bureau, raw, state police departments, coast guard, etc., etc. All of them will come onto a national security grid, a centralized platform. You must have seen a lot of spy movies, right? They'll have a very complicated operation center with cameras, high-tech, hi-fi infrastructure, web infrastructure, all that. Right? Imagine something like that. Okay. Next is Next is the retaliatory deterrence. Second part. So what do you mean by cross-sectoral deterrence? So deterrence need not be only at the border. You can have it through three armed forces coordination. For this very purpose, we have Chief of Defense Staff, a reform that came in 2019. We have, as a part of our armed forces, three different wings: Army, Navy, and the Air Force. The problem before this Office of Chief of Defense Staff was created was the Tri-armed forces, the three armed forces which were there, the coordination between them became a bit difficult. To solve that problem, we created the Office of CDS. Okay? So, we have to come up with a strategy where all the competencies are working together. If you see today's headline, our defense minister said that it is our duty to retaliate and address attacks like this. And the government is doing everything in its control to create this coordinated solutions so that attacks like this don't happen. So deterrence is that second wing. Third, escalation management. See, for example, the problem with dealing with countries like Pakistan is that they are geostrategically present at a very important point. They are right next to Afghanistan. If you take a look at the history of Afghanistan, you will see that no country has ever been able to maintain a hold on Afghanistan. This is a beautiful book called Revenge of Geography. It's a book written by a writer called Robert Kaplan. You can, if you have time, sometime, you can read that book, Revenge of Geography. In that, he talks about how geography plays a very important role in determining the future of a country. It's a very good read, very enjoyable read. If you have time, you can read it. So, Afghanistan was traditionally called the graveyard of empires because no single, whether it is colonial power or as recently as in 20th century, Russia tried to control that area. US tried to support locals. That support itself has created the entire terrorist regime there, Taliban. US tried to stay in Afghanistan to reset that order. They were not successful even after 20 years, so they had to pull back. Taliban has now taken control again. Right next to that, we have Pakistan. Pakistan itself is facing a lot of terror attacks. Right. So, in this situation, they want to align with China. They want to take occasional support from Pakistan. The President of United States, Donald Trump, has officially went on record to say that they will figure it out. Kashmir problem has been existing from I don't know when, I remember, so they have been doing this, so let them figure out. That is the official stance of the POTUS, that is the President of United States, who has historically been the office of that president. We are not talking about an individual there. The official stance of US has, switched between India and Pakistan. Mostly it was towards Pakistan and then it shifted towards India. So this international perception of Pakistan being a victim rather than a perpetuator of this terrorist activities has been time and again fueled by international support it got because of countries like US. That perception should be managed in various diplomatic channels. The first channel being the UN. Okay. The second channel being the ministerial talks, diplomatic channels. Then you have something called para-diplomatic channels, meaning intellectuals, for example, when writers, when research scholars, all of them organize themselves in international fora, these paradiplomatic channels should also be used to engage in creating a certain narrative. Whether we are actually, whether Pakistan is actually a victim of terrorism or they are actually perpetuating terrorism. Clarity should be given to the stakeholders in those forums. So this is the escalation management that we are talking about. Tri-axial architecture that we need to focus on. Okay. So how do we go about it? What is the offensive strategy? Defensive and offensive. In terms of setting this tri-axial architecture, we need to be proactive. We need to go towards that offensive. What do you mean by that? Firstly, we have to build a consensus globally. What do you mean by consensus? It's like everyone is agreeing on certain things. What do we need that consensus on? Accountability in proxy wars. We have to arrive at a global consensus that we should not encourage proxy wars. Any countries should not let this go away without any action. Let's say if India comes to know that something is happening in our own motherland, if it becomes a ground, if it becomes a laboratory of sorts for any coordinated attack on some other country, we should not let it go, saying that it's not our job to fix someone else's problem. We have to take accountability and create certain mechanisms to stop that from happening in India. And India should fight for the same set of ideology across the world and bring that consensus. So that is point number one. Then you have this multilateral platform leverage. Second point. What do you mean by multilateral? Bilateral means two. Multilateral, plurilateral, many. Multilateral, like more than a big number, like you can say 3, 4, 5 or maybe 10, whatever groupings are there, right? BRICS, SCO, what else do you have? SARC. On all these kinds of international forums, we have to create our leverage. What do you mean by leverage? Advantage. So whatever advantage we have, for example, we have something called the Financial Action Task Force. In your GS3 classes, when you are dealing with internal security, there will be a topic called money laundering. What do you mean by money laundering? How many of you watched this movie Shivaji, Rajnikant's movie? What happens in that movie? How many of you did not watch that movie? Quickly. How many of you watched? Reaction? Yes, no, nothing. Watched. Okay, great. So in that movie, what happens? The hero of the movie wants to do something good for the society, and because there is a lot of corruption, is not allowed to do that. He figures out a mechanism of how to convert that black money into something white. But since that movie is about Rajnikant and he is the hero of that movie, it is a good deed. When the system is corrupt, we will support illegal activities if it is meant for something good. But is that a good answer for our problems? Instead of fixing the problem, we are glorifying the heroes. There should never be a need for heroes like that. The problem is not with the need for a hero. It is always good to have a hero who is standing up for something that is right. But remember, democracy is not about individuals, it's about institutions. If there is a rot in the system, fix the rot. If the system is corrupt, fix the system. Don't wait for a hero to, revive your system. We don't have vigilante justice. Do you know what is vigilante justice? Anyone? Do you know the word vigilante? Do you know Batman? And how many of you watched this movie Dark Knight? You know Batman, right? A superhero. We should not need superheroes to save us. We should not need Rajnikants to save us. The institution should take care of itself, not the individual. If you are looking at a hero to save our system, then we are in a wrong system. We need to fix the system. Aspiring bureaucrats, the hallmark of a bureaucrat is anonymity. Like in this movie Vikram, where the hero talks about how he cannot tell whatever his successes are. That's the case for every bureaucrat as well. They might be contributing a lot to this country, but the public image is that, oh, the system is so corrupt. If it is so corrupt, we would not have progressed this far. We also need to celebrate those individuals who have upheld this system, but unfortunately, anonymity is the hallmark of our bureaucracy, because that is a requirement. Understand that whenever there is a rot, we need to fix the system. So, institutions are meant for this kind of strength. So, why am I talking about this? In money laundering topic, you will see that the biggest problem of money laundering is that this money is diverted for terrorist activities. So, this is called terror financing. India recently as in like a couple of years ago, they created a global narrative and conducted a conference called No Money for Terror, NMFT. This should be there in your answers. What are the activities taken up by India to stop terrorist activities? We tried to block terror financing and create a architecture, security architecture around that, and we held a conference called No Money for Terror Finance. Then you have the United Nations Security Council, which exists with the purpose of ensuring security. Then you have Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Interpol. Interpol, which is basically meant for arresting any individuals who are involved in any crimes. Our police can't coordinate with the police of other countries. So for that coordination, we need a architecture, an institution, that is Interpol. So you will get a lot of questions in prelims about notices issued by Interpol, the mechanisms of FATF, the origin of FATF, FATF, Financial Action Task Force. All these organizations will become important in prelims. And strategic terminology promotion. What does this mean? For example, we don't know what the word cross-border terrorism means. So we have to focus on this word and make it a common term across all global citizens. Not just in policy circles, but also it should become a common word so that people resonate with that idea. Next up. At the border areas, line of control, we should stop the infiltration. And for this very purpose, there is a committee called Madhukar Committee. It came up with some 100 recommendations on what we should be doing at the border areas. Okay? So, based on that committee recommendations, and there is also another committee called Shekatkar Committee. Together, these recommendations, helped us create this infrastructure at the border areas, but still infiltration is happening. So we should stop this cross-border infiltration by using nuclear deterrence strategy. We are not going to attack. India has a no first use policy. with respect to our nuclear weapons, meaning we will never attack any other person with a nuclear weapon unless and until they attack us with the nuclear weapon. Let's say they are not attacking us with the nuclear weapons, they are attacking it with something else. Can we use it? That, is exactly the policy. So around the time where this Uri attacks were happening, there were talks about reconsideration of this no first use doctrine. Do you think we should do that? Personally, what do you think? I'll just give you one fact. The first nuclear test was called Smiling Buddha. The very fact that we named that project based on Buddha, who is considered an apostle of peace, who stands for peace, signifies our official stance on nuclear weapons. Okay, so that has always been our stance. So it will impact our global positioning. This is my opinion. It need not be the same opinion of every official editor, etc., but this is my opinion. Okay, then we have to restrict this cross-border engagement. The reason why infiltration happens is because at those points lot of civilian exchange also happens sometimes in some points. That gaps wherever that border infrastructure is there, that is leveraged by this terrorists. We need to stop that. So overall, we need to completely deny access at those LOC points. Next is radicalization. Radicalization basically means brainwashing people. How do we manage radicalization? These are the strategies. First up, you need to stop the propaganda on web. Second is, wherever that resentment is building up, we need to carry out certain community level programs to educate the crowd that this is how you are being brainwashed, or this is not true. Certain narratives or false news or propaganda, whenever that is spread in small pockets where radicalization can be very quick, when they are already distressed, especially in border areas, those pockets should be targeted. Then we have to have intelligence mapping. See, basically, if something happens in Israel and Palestine, why will that become a issue here? Because people may be connected through ideologies. Even in issues where we have absolutely no clarity, people are polarized sometimes, driven by social media narratives. Do we actually know what is happening on the ground? Why do we have to take a stance on that? Because it becomes a part of your perceived identity. Just like how the left wing and the right wing debates continue, ideological debates like how war should be dealt, how in Indian population you will definitely see a polarization of opinion on how we should deal with Russia-Ukraine war, how we should deal with Israel-Palestine war, how we should deal with any issue that is happening across the world. And that should not impact our internal security. We have to contain that. And this is an extension of the propaganda, where your surveillance, you're not only stopping the narrative, not only countering the propaganda, but if something is happening like in a very silent manner, in a very covert manner, let's say for example in dark web some illegal activities are happening, you need to carry out surveillance. So that is also part of the strategy. This is about managing radicalization. Then you have to focus on strategic communication, which is about the perception. We have already discussed these points. So see, it is about what we have to, this slide is about what we have to do to avoid engagement, where should we draw our boundaries of engagement, what we should do, what we should not do. Here the takeaway is that we have to maintain some element of surprise and unpredictability. See, if our enemy knows exactly how we are going to define, how we are going to react, we become predictable. That element of surprise, shock and unpredictability will create some psychological fear and deterrence, and India should maintain that, and that will happen through indigenization, Atmanirbharta and defense, how we have discussed. The importance of science and technology for internal security. Yesterday's topic is linked to today's. Clear? And now we have another key concept called multi-theater integration. What do you mean by this? Are we talking about movie theaters now? Can anyone tell me what is multi-theater integration? Theater means a place where this conflict is happening. It is about military, it is about intelligence, diplomatic alignment, legal architecture. All the spheres should work together to create this end objective. Clear? You can note it down. Military, intelligence, diplomatic and legal architecture. So that brings us to the end of the first article written by Suhasini Haidar. So all in all, we need to have a multi-axial arrangement institutional framework to deal with any security disturbance that this country has. The end objective should be to focus on institutional strength, to move away from reactive policies to deliberate security architectures that will protect the interests of this country and the sovereignty of this country. That is the conclusion. Clear? Did you understand the whole topic? If you understand the framework of this topic, your internal security syllabus, the first part is over. The concept of terrorism, how India deals with its borders. You just have to remember certain facts and your preparation for internal security on the topic is over. Whatever facts that you come across in newspapers going forward are just value additions, the latest updates. It's like a software update, but you need to have the hardware, right? This thought process or framework is the hardware. Clear? Okay. The keywords, the value addition, the examples, the quotes in international relations and internal security, replicating the jargon will fetch you marks. Now, let's move to the second article. We're talking about the debate of food and fuel. What is the context of this article? And how do we extrapolate this article to a thought framework? Let's understand that. So this is taken from the Indian Express. This article is about how we will use maize, a crop which is traditionally used for a poultry feedstock. Okay? You know poultry, right? Chicken, basically. So, what do we feed that chicken while you are breeding them, while you are nurturing them? When that stock becomes a feedstock for our ethanol policy, we are diverting it away from food towards fuel. This is the context of the article. Now let's understand the actual problem and why it is becoming a problem. Yesterday when we were talking about imports, I told you a concept called current account deficit. Right? This is the economics angle. When we import a lot of things, it will increase the cost for India. When we are importing fuel, two problems arise. One, it increases the cost for India. Two, we are polluting the environment. And also, three factors. Most importantly, from international relations dimension, we are losing our strategic autonomy. Three dimensions: economic impact, environmental impact, international relations, strategic impact. So, if we want to solve these three problems, we need to move away from fossil fuels. Right now, we are not having an ecosystem that can completely create e-vehicles. Again we will have to depend on some other country for critical minerals. These minerals which are important for manufacturing batteries. China has a lot of them. We cannot produce them yet. So what is the middle path? Moving towards something that can be mixed with petrol. Let's say if you are importing 100 liters, we will import only 85 liters. We will reduce it to 80 and so on and so forth. What will we mix it with? India decided that we will mix it with ethanol, which is blendable, which will not cause a problem. Ethanol. So as a part of this, we have something called the ethanol blending program. How is ethanol produced? It is produced from any carbohydrate source. Okay? Carbohydrate. Any food that you eat, like it can be rice, wheat, it can be produced from anything. Okay? Whatever oil seeds are there, whatever is a fat source, this will produce biodiesel through a process called esterification. Okay? Groundnuts are not used for producing ethanol. They are used for producing biodiesel. They can be used. They are not used actually. Okay? They can be used. So in prelims level, you will get questions like, can this be used? Can this not be used? So the funda there is whether this can be used in the production of ethanol or biodiesel. Okay? So there is a policy called the National Biofuel Policy of 2018. How do we handle this ethanol blending program? What kind of fuels, what kind of feedstock can be used for producing this biofuels? That is covered in that topic. A topic that we will discuss in the traditional static syllabus. Okay, we'll get back to the topic here. So maize being one such carbohydrate source is getting diverted away from this poultry feedstock, and we are putting it in the ethanol blending program. Farmers are happy because they're getting, there's a competition. Poultry people want maize, ethanol producers want maize, so farmers are happy. But there is a problem for this country. From being a self-sufficient, or sometimes we even exported maize, from there, despite being the agricultural hub that this country is, we started to import maize. The very purpose with which we started, this program, one of the objective is to reduce current account deficit, and we are again importing. Because a lot of production is happening there. Like, okay, a very good question. Why did we choose maize? So this takes us back to GS1 geography. The agroclimatic zones will decide. See, production of a crop and the cropping patterns will depend on two things. Primarily the market demand in today's world. Primarily the market demand, and whether that geography can support that demand or not. Since maize is required for poultry, we have been producing. Okay. An alternative for this is soya bean. Madhya Pradesh, which has been one of the largest states for producing the soya bean, consumption of soya bean is coming down. Because the poultry, those chicken like maize more than soya bean. And even the poultry producers are happy to feed them in some pockets maize because they gain more weight. Okay. So this traditional use is coming in conflict with the new demand. So the core question that we need to ask is, should we use maize to feed livestock or to fuel vehicles. This is an ethical dilemma also. Don't you think? Don't you think this is an ethical dilemma? Do you see any ethical dilemma here? What is the ethical dilemma? Think. Why is it an ethical dilemma? We can feed something else to animals. Ethical dilemmas are framed within a certain context in your situation. Is it expensive? Is it cheap? Is it sustainable? These questions should be brought in the framework of ethics. Ethics is not always about moral uprightness. It is also about the end objective. The end objective of ethics is to maintain balance and peace. We will discuss more about ethics in our ethics classes. Anyway, who are the economic winners? Maize farmers, the distilleries because they are getting cheaper raw material, and the energy sector because they are getting cheap fuel also. Who are the losers? Poultry industry and the soybean farmers because soybean consumption is also reducing. Now, this is the graph that you can see. This is the price of maize and this is the price of the feed cost. Okay, maize price is increasing and the feed cost is not proportionately supporting that argument. So what will happen? Structural consequences. We will be moving from exports to imports. There will be a market distortion, and sometimes from different Latin American countries and other nations, European nations also, we will be importing the genetically modified versions of this maize crop. And there is always a danger that the local varieties will catch some disease that these genetically modified crops are resistant to, and the local varieties will forever vanish from that area. The seeds of that local variety may not grow in that area again. And again we are creating a dependency on some genetically modified version. And if that genetically modified version also catches some disease, we are at the risk of putting the entire population at risk because we will not be having enough food. That is why biodiversity should be respected. And finally, protein deficiency risk, because we are putting the poultry farmers at a stress because it is getting expensive for poultry farmers. So what is the solution? See, this is a just a framework for thinking. Whenever you are dealing with a policy problem, create a matrix in your head like this. I call it the policy tension matrix. See here, what is the objective? We have to attain food security. What is the instrument available? MSP, and ensuring that feed is available. Food security is not just for us, for also the animals. But what is the conflict? It is undermined by price rise. Okay, situations like this: objective, available instrument, and conflict. If you create a thought pattern like this, you will be able to address the problem. And like I've told you, in any governance problem, the biggest issue here is policy incoherence. One ministry says one thing, another ministry says another thing, and there is a conflict between. See, for example, agricultural ministry says we have to promote food security and livestock availability, and then petroleum ministry says that we have to push for ethanol blending. You can't have both at the same time. So we need to have a non-silos based approach. Okay, so finance ministry should be focusing on the concerns about feed inflation. The environment ministry should be focusing on GM crops. All these issues should work in tandem. Okay, what is the impact of maize crops? Like we have discussed, it will increase the current account deficit. We will depend on some other country. It is not desirable. And then other approaches that we have to take to solve this problem. Wherever there are pockets where poultry industry is more, we should prioritize availability to that. Feed priority zones. Okay, that is a step. Next is feed security. We should, under the National Food Security Mission, which is meant for human beings, where 67% of the population is included in that. Okay, we need to focus on poultry availability also. Then there is this issue of dairy support, feed buffer stock, where we have to maintain the reserves and ensure that even for milk industry the feed is available. All this should be integrated. Okay, and we have to rethink our protein strategy. The reason why we consume meat is for protein security. We should probably consider an alternative mechanism for ensuring our protein needs. That is what this article says about. And for this, you need to move towards the concept of agri-ecosystem, interconnected agricultural ecosystem, where maize, poultry, dairy, ethanol, soybean, all of them together work like a system. I told you, right, we have to approach things through the lens of a systemic thinking. You are understanding that if one area is impacted, other areas will also see an increase or decrease in that sector. For example, maize, poultry, how this two components impacted soybean food security, and it will have a cascading effect. So as a policy maker, you should always think like a system builder, institutional builder. Okay, so if I have to sum up the entire article, the mains ready summary, that is how you can write the answer. This is the, it reveals that if you are not calibrating the agri sector realities, risk undermining food linked livelihoods, even as they advance clean energy goals, we will put India in distress. Okay, so you can link this to GS3, we can link this to GS2, we can use this in essay, and this is how every article should be read. Finally, there is one small news that I want you to focus on in today's, okay, agricultural insurance in India. This is a small topic. Here, I want you to Google about Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, and there is a insurance policy that was brought forth by the state of Maharashtra. The Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, I will explain the basics because this will again be dealt in the agriculture chapter of your static. So I'm not going in depth there. This Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is meant to provide insurance to farmers in the case of any risk to the crops. Maharashtra state government has put this scheme aside, which is a central government scheme, and came forward with their own scheme where the premium of that insurance policy is just 1 rupee. The news is that the government is now forced to remove that policy because it did not work. Why did it not work? Let's see. See, you know why insurance exists and what is the scheme about. So basically, entire premium is borne by Maharashtra state government. It is simply not sustainable. Why? Because there were wrong claims. Almost half of them are wrong claims because the land records are not clear. So this brings us to the point of GS3, land reforms. This is a syllabus pointer. On the Telegram channel, just search for land reforms. You will get a list of articles and videos on that. You will understand how to go about it. Okay, the entire topic of land reforms was discussed there. Because we don't have proper land records, there will be fake claims. One person will claim that this land belongs to me. Another person will also come, and there will be no mechanism to test if this is right or wrong. And because of this reason, this scheme failed. So what does this tell you? Without proper planning, no scheme will see success. This is a case study. You can use this in your governance answers. So what are the lessons? We need to have proper verification systems, and just because you are going to impress the crowd, don't create that policy, because there should be an incentive for both the stakeholders, the government as well as the voter, citizens as well as the government. Both the parties should have an incentive to stick to that scheme. It cannot be a one-way traffic. And if it is like that, it is not financially viable. This is a policy lesson for us. Ultimately, whatever we do, bad policy designs will eventually erode trust, because farmers are very happy, because there might be honest farmers also who were very happy with the scheme. Now they will be disappointed. And the next time something genuine comes up, they do not have the patience to sit and understand that, okay, this is something genuine. They are not policy makers. Their life is already difficult. Don't expect them to sit and understand your problems of policy making. So this is a policy lesson. So these are the important articles for the day, and this is how you are supposed to prepare for this. Any doubts? So today we prepared the framework on how to prepare internal security, terrorism issues. Then we have seen the importance of having agri-food systems, and within that umbrella framework we are putting this article of maize story. It's just a small story, but the larger systemic issue is the absence of a system, a proper coordinated system. See, in 3 issues here you will see one common problem. Can you tell me what is that common problem? Lack of proper planning and coordination, which is a part of governance, and you are going to be a part of that governance system to make it work. So when I say you are all policy makers, essentially you are all problem solvers. If you prepare with this mindset, everything becomes easy. So are you enjoying the classes? Do you see any change in the way you are approaching things now? Are you supposed to mug up information? Can you mug up information to clear this exam? Never. Because there will be thousands of articles, thousands of pages that are going to come. You need to have a proper framework of thought. That thought itself will make you a bureaucrat. Learning the ability to present your thought with clarity and the latest information is what is needed for this exam, not mindless consumption of thousands of pages. You need to know why you are doing something, how you are doing, where you are doing. So every activity that we do should be mapped to an outcome. What is the activity that we did today? We analyzed newspaper articles of internal security and agriculture policies for an outcome of understanding how governance failure can break the system. Is that clear? Great. See you tomorrow.